Hello, and this week's topic is right triangle trigonometry. Um, but what does that mean? That's a lot. We're dealing with right triangles, and we're going to deal with the measure of right triangles. So this is what happens when we don't have a 40, 45, 45, 90 right triangle or a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. So first, our objectives are to identify the trig ratios sine, cosine, and tangent, and then to calculate algebra problems using sine, cosine, and tangent, and then to explain which trig ratio to apply to which triangle. Now, we need to refresh ourselves with vocabulary of the triangle. So the hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle. It's the side across from the 90-degree angle. The adjacent side is the side that contains the angle that is not the hypotenuse. And the opposite side is the side across from the angle. In our studies, we're going to talk about theta. Theta is a Greek letter that represents the angle. It looks like that. Okay? So when we talk about the triangle, we're going to identify an angle as theta. I need a different color ink. That's blue. So if this guy's theta, this side is the opposite side. This side will be the adjacent side. This is the 90-degree angle. Therefore, this side is the hypotenuse. Okay? If this was theta, if this angle was theta, we still have the same 90-degree angle. The hypotenuse remains the same, but this side becomes the opposite, and this side becomes the adjacent. So you need to make sure that you are paying attention to where your angle is, because that matters. Okay? So let's look at some more vocabulary. So when we talk about trigonometry, we're talking about trigonometric functions. Okay? We are talking about measuring the sides of triangles. Trigonometric functions are functions that use trig. Okay? We talk about sine. The three most common ones that we're going to talk about, in geometry at least, are sine, cosine, and tangent. There are three other ones that we will talk about in trig or in pre-calculus, but we're in geometry right now. So that's sine, cosine, and tangent. So the sine is a function that is expressed as the ratio of the opposite side of a right triangle to the hypotenuse of the same right triangle. Cosine is a function that is expressed as a ratio of the adjacent side of a right triangle to the hypotenuse. And the tangent is a function that is expressed as a ratio to the opposite side of a right triangle to the adjacent side of a right triangle. So when we say sine of theta, we say that that is the opposite over the hypotenuse. When we say cosine of theta, that is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And then tangent of theta is the opposite over the adjacent. We remember this by saying so, ca, TOA. Okay? So, when we're doing problems like this, we use SOHCAHTOA. Sine means opposite over hypotenuse. Sine is the opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. Okay? So those are the things you're going to need to memorize, but for the MCAS, you don't have to memorize it. They give it to you on the reference sheet. So they pick their theta to be down at the bottom, and then they say the sine of theta is A over C. So side A over C, or opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine is B over C, or adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is A over B, or the opposite over the adjacent. Okay? And then they, of course, give you the Pythagorean theorem, which is very helpful, which is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So watch the Khan Academy videos on how to calculate these problems and work on the worksheet, and come to class on Monday and Wednesday, and we will go over the worksheet and how to do problems like this.